Just want to say congrats to the winners. Of course, in the preseason, we thought the Thunder were the top team in the West to represent in the finals with a great narrative to win the finals, and that's because this is the 79th NBA season, and the Thunder used to be the Seattle Sonics, who won the championship in 79. And if you've missed my work on this NBA playoffs, they've been paying all kinds of tribute to the Oklahoma City bombing that happened April 19th, 95. In Game 7, there were 95 points at the half. Remember, the game on June 11th was the anniversary of Timothy McVeigh being executed in Indiana. Execution equals 116, and the Pacers won that game with 116 points on the 11th day of the 6th month. But here's the real joke about this. I always talk about how they sync up sports with news and history. Not only were they paying tribute to Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City with this championship, but they're paying tribute to what's going on right now between the U.S. and Israel and Iran. I've been talking about the Templars, how important the Templars are to the history of why Israel is where it is, how Pete Hegseth, the current Secretary of Defense, has Templar tattoos all over his body. Look up the coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder, Mark Daigneault. His first coaching job was with the Jesuit University Holy Cross. And what are Holy Cross's nickname? The Crusaders. Remember, in gematria in the base ciphers, Knights Templar equates to 173. Today is the 173rd day of the year. With numerology, Knights Templar equals 65, like Oklahoma City equals 65. And you know how many wins the Pacers are going to be stuck on for the year? 65. And remember who died right before the Eastern Conference Finals tipped off? Jim Irsay, the Indianapolis Colts owner, died at 65. And these finals began on 6-5. And what day did the Pacers get their 65th win of the season? They got it on Juneteenth, which began in 1865. But again, Knights Templar equals 173. Today's the 173rd day of the year. With numerology, it equals 65. And when you run it in reverse, Knights Templar equals 79. Like this is the 79th season. And again, the Sonics won it in 79. Also noteworthy, Oklahoma is the 46th state. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the star for the Thunder and likely the MVP for the finals, this is his 46th playoff game. And you know who the 46th president was? Joe Biden, who was elected 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, the nation's second Catholic president when Catholic equals 46. Remember where he fits in with the Oklahoma City bombing. The nation passed the first counterterrorism legislation ever, and it was Joe Biden's bill, and it passed on Governor Keating's birthday, the governor of Oklahoma, 68 days before Oklahoma City blew up when terror equals 68 like CIA. Also like basketball and championship. R.I.P. to Dikembe Mutombo, who died exactly 68 weeks after the Nuggets won their first championship. But yeah, this is another example of just, again, I mean, so many great examples in this series, how they paid tribute to news and history. Again, paid tribute to OKC. Again, the playoffs this year began on April 19th. First game of the NBA playoffs was on April 19th, the anniversary of the bombing. Again, paying tribute to Juneteenth in 1865, and now what they got going on with the new Crusades in Iran, synced up with Hegseth, Mr. Templar tattoos. But yeah, this is what we educate about every year. I mean, I've been here for over a decade now, calling out futures left and right. We weren't quite right in both conferences. My preseason pick was the Thunder to face Boston, and I thought I was going to get it right because I said look for Boston to start the year 19-5 on Larry Bird's birthday. They did start the year 19-5 on Larry Bird's birthday. Boston Celtics equals 195, and if they do go to another finals and win, they are going to be 19-5. But you know where Boston Larry Legend is from? He's from Indiana, and in hindsight, it's like, okay, that's why they did that. The tribute through Boston was really for Larry Bird in Indiana. And by the way, Larry Joe Bird, his full name equates to 79, like the 79th season. He's connected. He's coached the Pacers, and he's part of their ownership. So yeah, that's the reason they put the Pacers in this scripted finals, and also how they could pay tribute to McVay. Oh, and here's one of my favorite things. Here's the other awesome tribute. Halliburton, the oil company, was founded in Oklahoma, and the star player of the Pacers, Halliburton, who went out with a fake injury today, 113 days after his birthday in the 113 League. Today is 143 days after Dick Cheney's 84th birthday. Dick Cheney, of course, is Mr. Halliburton. Today, the Pacers are picking up their 143rd postseason loss. And with regards to Dick Cheney being 84 years old, Indiana Pacers equals 84. This Game 7 is the 84th game of this year's NBA playoffs. And, of course, Sunday equals 84. And you know who's getting their 84th win of the year? Oklahoma City, picking up the 84th win of the year. Chet Holmgren on the line, also Jesuit educated, went to Gonzaga. But yeah, the coach of the Thunder, Mark Daigneault, first coaching job, Jesuit Holy Cross, the Crusaders. And if you haven't been watching my news videos, again, I showed you how all this stuff has to do with the Templars. And by the way, just the way they sync it up, right? The Iranian Revolution was in 79, the year the Sonics won it. Trump just turned 79 in the middle of the NBA Finals. And, now this right here. So, yeah, learn gematria, learn history, and you'll see the rig scripts as well as we do. You might even see it better if you can learn it better. But, what we've done is unprecedented. And I could just say I, but the reason I say we is because there are smart minds in the community who help out with the thoughts and ideas. Thunder was our preseason pick. And I showed you guys also how the opening night game, let me remind you what happened opening night of the NBA season. The Lakers won their opener with LeBron Raymond James, who equals 79. And he stayed on 79 home losses with the Lakers in that game. And remember who was watching? Remember, it was LeBron and his son, Bronny, who was in attendance, the last father-son duo in sports, the Griffeys, who played in Seattle. And remember, at the end of that game, it was right before the World Series began, where the Dodgers went on to win it, who we also had to win the World Series in spring training. But they announced the death of Fernando Valenzuela, who pitched in the last Dodgers series versus the Yankees, and then the next day it was Rudy May, who pitched against Fernando Valenzuela in that World Series. It's back-to-back deaths right before it begins. Nobody blinks an eye. But Fernando Valenzuela equates to 79, like Cy Young, announced dead the night of the opener. And again, this stuff's just par for the course. Stuff goes on all the time. Ritual sacrifices for the games, like Jim Irsay, right before Pacers-Knicks tipped off. And don't forget, Dick Barnett, who was from Indiana and played for the Celtics, or not the Celtics, but the Knicks. He died right before the Knicks-Pacers series, and Indiana equals 34. That series ended 34 days after his death. He died at 88, went to Fordham, the 88 University, like Trump, Jesuit school. Knicks closed out their first series, their 88th game of the year, and then lost to the Pacers. And Don't forget Shawn Kemp. Shawn Kemp going to prison. Shawn Kemp played for Seattle, who are now the Thunder, and Shawn Kemp's also from Indiana. And you might recall he had the same 141 number ritual as Dick Barnett, whose name equals 141. The Pacers and Knicks series began on the 141st day of the year. But yeah, Kemp's a different type of sacrifice. He doesn't die, but he goes to prison, or at least so we're told. And Dick Barnett's in the grave, along with Jim Irsay and what's his name for the Sonics? Slick Watts. He died during the season. One of the many foreshadowings that the Thunder would be here. And now take it, just like the Sonics did in 79. So, again, you guys, you learn this gematria thing. You learn history. You pay attention. You see what's really going on. And if you're new here, look up the song Gematria, the Killing Name. And also look up the song Murder by Numbers by the Police. You've got Netflix. That copycat movie, they even played the song Murder by Numbers right in it. It's about a serial killer. Till next time, True Seeker. Welcome back, True Seeker. A lot of people inquiring about the syringe attacks in France this weekend at a music festival. And to make a long story short, this is all about creating the culture of fear and prepping the minds for why people want to be part of the upcoming virtual reality known as Meta, which is set to launch in its full totality in 2030. Remember, in the future, rather than being out with people at a music festival, you can participate in virtual music festivals in Meta. And in a virtual music festival, Nobody can creep up on you and prick you with a syringe. As it's being reported, happened in France, the home of the Jesuits, this weekend. I'm going to show you just how ritualistic this was on the 172nd day of the year, the day the U.S. bombed with the B-2s with the 172-foot wingspan. You know what? Just to make a long story short, again, you learn gematria, you just see through all of it. Notice how syringe attacks in gematria equates to 172, just like the Jesuit motto in Merum de Gloriam equates to 172. Again, you get these values by just taking the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, up to Z is 26. You add up the letters as numbers. That's how you get the values. This Saturday, when the music festival began, June 21st, that was the 172nd day of the year. Again, that's the date it was in the U.S. when Iran was bombed with the 172-foot wingspan B-2s. But yeah, just to read, French police have detained 12 suspects after the 145 people reported being pricked with syringes during the country's annual street music festival this weekend. Remember, the Jesuits from France served the Catholic Church. The word Catholic equates to 145, like there's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament. Millions of people took to the streets across France on Saturday, that was June 21st, 172nd day of the year, evening for the Fête de la Musique, with authorities reporting unprecedented crowds in Paris. Again, the Jesuits were founded in Paris, August 15th, 1534. The feminist influencer Abrajozoa, warned online before the festival that calls had been made on social media for women to be targeted with syringes. It was not certain where such posts would have been made or by whom. The Interior Ministry said 145 victims across the country had reported being stabbed with needles during outdoor music events across the country. Paris police reported 13 cases in the capital. Don't forget the whole Cooties 19 thing had a lot of needles, and it was all Jesuit as well with the same numbers. Officials did not say if there were cases of so-called needle spiking with the date RAPE drugs, such as Rofinol or GHB, used by attackers to render victims confused or unconscious and vulnerable to sexual assault. Some victims were taken to hospitals for toxicological tests, the ministry said. In Paris, investigations were opened after 3 people, including a 15-year-old girl and the 18-year-old male. What's 15 plus 18? Is that 33, like France is the plus 33 international dialing code? Like how the Scottish Rite, with the highest degree of 33, came to power in France? Reported being stabbed in separate incidents across Paris, prosecutors said. All 3 reported feeling unwell. Across France, 12 suspects have been arrested, the Interior Ministry said. Among them were 4 people in the southwestern city of Angoulême, I don't know how to say these French words, suspected of having targeted about 50 victims, a police source said. 2 men were also arrested in the center of the northeastern city of Metz on suspicion of syringe attacks. The regional public broadcaster France 3 reported that 1 man had been caught with a syringe and a woman who complained of being stabbed with one had recognized the other. The local prosecutor's office in Metz said the alleged victims were believed to be under 18. One of the alleged suspects, a man aged 20, was previously known to police for violence. The local public radio station ICE France, or is it IC France, reported that several young women had complained of being stabbed with syringes in Évreux and Rouen being in Normandy. 1 woman was taken to hospital with pains in her left arm where she believed a needle had been stuck into her. In the western city of Tours, 13 women complained to fire services on duty at a music event that someone had been pricked them with a syringe. How many typos are in this article? Probably also written by AI. The renewed fears of syringe attacks come as Paris prepares for its summer music festival season. There was a wave of reports in 2022 about alleged syringe attacks against women and men in clubs, bars, music events, and even theaters. The government put out messages at the time for people going out at night to be vigilant and advising them that they should go immediately to the police and also have a toxicology test if they thought they had been drugged by a syringe prick. Some complaints were made by women during the 2022 Fête de la Musique, and over the course of the year, several hundred complaints were made in cities including Nantes, Grenoble, and Toulouse. Agence France Presse reported on a 2022 police memo stating that syringe marks were generally on the arms, buttocks, or back without victims seeing the alleged attacker. More than 370 people were detained during this weekend's nationwide music festival on various charges, including nearly 90 people in Paris. 14 participants in the festivities were seriously injured, including a 17-year-old hospitalized after being found sitting on the street with stab wounds to the lower abdomen. 13 members of law enforcement were also injured. Old 13, huh? Reminder of the Illuminati, founded with 13 families by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, May 1st, 1776, was for the American and French revolutions kicked off. But yeah, again, Saturday was the 172nd day of the year. These are being called the syringe attacks. And for anyone going, well, that's not the language in France, though. English isn't the official language of France. Well, what matters is in the 16th century, when the Jesuits implemented the calendar, they also standardized the English alphabet with its 26 letters and agreed to spellings, which have both spread across the world. The calendar system that the calendar system that says this event happened Saturday, June 21st, 2025. And again, English is the language that is taught worldwide. France is also taught, in the U.S., common language to learn is French or Spanish in high school. But it's not English. English taught worldwide. English all over road signs worldwide, even in non-speaking English nations. And as I've been showing for going on 12 years come this August, again, you learn this code. You see how the events that take place worldwide are encoded this way. And it is all part of an agenda. Again, it serves multi-purposes, but the people at the top love to use fear to push people into their agendas. And like I said, they're building a virtual world for us where we can be totally isolated from one another and live in virtual reality, and we'll all be a lot safer, is the way they're marketing it. But also realize as people become more isolated and more and more living behind screens and less human contact, it also enables this kind of weird stuff, right? People that have just lost all empathy for others, who go to a music festival and stab somebody, some stranger in the back with a syringe. I mean, absolutely horrific behavior. But then again, you have to ask, did it even happen? I mean, if it's reported in the news, it's already in the minds of the masses. I don't know if it did happen or not. The point is, the ritual is clear to see why this took place on June 21st. The 172nd day of the year. And again, that 172 and that 145, very Jesuit, very Catholic numbers, as we've talked about so many times. June 21st, 172nd day of the year. And here, just one more. Wingspan of B-2 bomber. Let's get that one too. Of B-2 bomber. Because this was the story that really stole the show on June 21st. Look at that. 172 feet. And that's why we stay with this silly system over here in the U.S. Forget the metric system. We need the encoded feet system. We'll leave it there for now. Until next time, Truth Seeker. Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Monday, June 23rd, 2025. Today in the Diddy trial, the prosecution rested its case with the feds calling the last of their witnesses. And overall, the trial had a lot of hype, and it was mostly all BS. Here's what I want to talk about. The ritual in numbers, because it's always a ritual in numbers. The secret society that's large and in charge in this nation, the Masons, they etch on the temple the Pythagoras quote, all is number. And again, the trial was supposed to begin on 5/5 for 55-year-old Diddy, but they delayed it a week until May 12th. So from the trial beginning May 12th to the prosecution resting its case today, June 23rd, is 42 days later. And of course, this number is stamped all over Black history. Again, my 2017 book, Letters and Numbers, the 18th chapter of that book is about the shaming and ritual murder of Black celebrities in light of the 42 code. Recall Craig Mack of Bad Boy Records, one of many 42 casualties. But in this case, Diddy just went through 42 days of humiliation with the word freak-offs said a gazillion times. And again, if you're new here, gematria, the Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words. There are 4 base ciphers in the English language: the alphabetic order with numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with numerology. I learned about this from the 1926 book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. The book alludes to all 4 ciphers, but only lists out actually writes out the cipher for the dark blue, which is known as Pythagorean gematria or reduction, just the alphabetic order of numerology. That's where Puff Daddy and Freak-Offs both equal 42. So 42 days after the trial began, the case is rested. And with regards to the feds calling the last of their witnesses, remember the feds raided Diddy's home on the anniversary of Biggie's album, Life After Death, which came out right after he supposedly died. But look at this. From Diddy's birthday, November 4th, to the feds resting their case, it's exactly 33 weeks later. And in gematria, federal equals 33, like police, like masonry, like secrecy, like order. Big time code. The highest degree of the Scottish Rite is 33. And with regards to Diddy's life, his father was killed at age 33 in the year 72. And remember, his father worked for Frank Lucas. We talked about how important the Frank Lucas part of Diddy's history was in his arrest ritual back in September. But the story of Frank Lucas is that, he was in the Vietnam War and he figured out how to bring heroin over to the United States, which made him a drug kingpin. And supposedly he was smuggling all this heroin on military planes, on federal planes. Seems like a load of BS, if you ask me. And like I said, it's your government that wants to funnel the drugs in the country, because when you get caught with those drugs, you end up as slave labor in a cage, as so many people know. It's a game they play with society. Another 33 word is alcohol. Like prohibition ended in 33. And think about how much money is generated off of alcohol-related crimes, largely DUIs or DWIs or whatever they call the acronym these days. A lot of money generated off people drinking and driving. And consider years ago you were allowed to have a lot more alcohol in your system. They dropped the level substantially in the 90s, and there's been a whole lot more money raised off drinking and driving ever since. But yeah, it's such a game, you guys. It's just such a game. 33 weeks after his birthday, the feds say they brought their last witness. 42 days after the trial began. Again, 42 stamped all over Black history. Jackie equals 42, slavery, Tuskegee, the N-word, bus. Again, that Bad Boy Records song with, who is it? Is it Faith Evans and Carl Thomas? They say so emotional in the chorus. It begins with a bus passing by that has a big 42 on it. These things are not an accident. But yeah, again, just like the whole Diddy arrest was by the numbers, so is everyone resting their case. They just couldn't have scripted it any better. And the other big news right now, Trump supposedly announcing a ceasefire. Iran responded right away and said, Israel's still attacking us with drones, and we haven't agreed to any ceasefire. So when Trump announced it, though, it was already tomorrow. I speak from the United States. Tomorrow would be Tuesday, June 24th, which is a date with 55 numerology. Remember, ceasefire equals 55. So Trump said they had a ceasefire on the 55 date, at least for over there. Over here, it's a 54 date numerology, like Diddy was arrested at age 54, like I told you a year in advance he would be. Again, it all had to do with the death of Clarence Avant 54 years after establishing Sussex Records, and what happened to R. Kelly at age 54. And, of course, R. Kelly's back in the headlines by the numbers as well. So we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. In the comments, if you've been here, write down as many 42 rituals as you can remember that we've covered in the last decade plus. I'd like to see what the community remembers. Or are we all suffering from the United States of amnesia? Till next time.